So I often get asked, what is the best beginner reptile to start with for a brand new reptile keeper to get them into the hobby, something nice and easy to take care of, and it's going to do well in captivity? What are they? Being that we are here in Australia, Australia has rules where we're not allowed to keep exotic reptiles, nothing comes in or out, so all we have to work with is some of our native species. So depending on which state you're in, depends on which animals you can keep and what kind of license you need to keep them. But regardless, in pretty much every state, you need some sort of reptile license to keep track of your animals, what you have, and what's coming in or out. So I've nailed down 4 of the best Australian lizards to start with based on cost, ease of care, and availability. Best species from the 4 main families available, that being monitors, dragons, geckos, and skinks. First up, no surprise to anyone, we have the blue-tongued skink. So these guys are an amazing first pet for anyone or anyone in any stage of their reptile keeping journey. So these are very easy to take care of, very good for handling, as you can see. This is a young alpine blotched blue tongue that I bred this last season. They're very cool little characters, got a lot of personality, and they eat a varied diet. They're omnivores, so they'll eat insects, dog food, veggies, all sorts. So they're really good all around because you don't have to feed them live food, and they're very easy to maintain. And in most parts of Australia, a lot of them can just be kept outdoors, so very low cost, and they're available everywhere. There's always baby eastern blue tongues for sale almost anywhere on the east coast of Australia. And there's also some other different forms that are a bit prettier in my opinion, like these alpines. Bit less common, but they're still available to find and they're not that expensive. They're of course called a blue-tongued skink because they have that really awesome blue tongue. They use that for smelling and tasting their environment, finding their food. And yeah, that is very cute, very chill little animals. Very easy to tame, probably the starter reptile for most of the reptile community in Australia. Now we're really lucky because these guys can come in a massive variety of colours. Lots of different morphs available on the market these days, like this one here. It's a hypermelanistic, a pure black eastern blue tongue. This is one of my favourites. And yeah, lots of variation to choose from. So when it comes to buying your first lizard anywhere around the world, one of these is probably what you're going to get recommended. So this is of course a bearded dragon. This is quite different to the majority of bearded dragons you see around the world. This is actually a pygmy bearded dragon. It's basically a smaller species. Their care is almost identical to your central bearded dragon that you normally see. So I'd recommend one of these or a central bearded dragon for your gamid lizards or dragons. And just like the blue tongues, they're omnivorous, so they eat veggies and insects. They're a bit more involved in their care, it's a bit more essential that they have their proper lighting and whatnot, but they're still very easy to keep, very good to handle. The dragon lizards are great because they're quite active little animals. These guys will run around all day, be very interactive, you know, digging burrows and just going crazy. Really fun to feed, they can be really energetic, get really excited by their food, so very interactive, especially if you're young and you want something a bit more interesting. It doesn't just sit there and do nothing. So yeah, bearded dragon's a great option, and there is a ton of info online. Very well documented species, lots of people out there that are willing to help you out. Unfortunately, with that comes a lot of misinformation, but just do your research and yeah, very hardy animal. So if you're thinking to yourself, oh, everyone has a blue-tongued skink or a bearded dragon, I want something a bit different. I want a mini monitor. Well, your best option for a little monitor is going to be an Ackie, a Varanus acanthurus, otherwise known as a ridge-tailed monitor or a spiny-tailed monitor. These guys are the best starter monitor for sure. They're very commonly available. Most common monitor you'll see for sale. They don't get very big. They have insanely beautiful coloration, which can vary quite a bit from more yellows to more reds. And they're just really active and really easy to look after. They need to be kept really hot, like majority of monitors, and they will just smash insects all day. So very fun little animals. Not something you see as commonly as a blue tongue or a beardy or anything like that. Pretty much the best option if you want to start with monitors. When it comes to geckos, they can be an adorable little animal, but they're not always ideal for a beginner reptile keeper as far as the Australian geckos go, because a lot of them are able to climb up walls and can be really fast, and they don't like to be handled. But an animal I'd recommend is probably a thick-tailed gecko. These guys don't really have the ability to climb up walls. They're not that fast moving. They're very cute, very pretty coloration, and they're fairly common and quite cheap too. Easy to care for, and I think they're an awesome little animal. I'll be the first to admit I'm not much of an Australian gecko expert, so if you know more than me about it, leave a comment below. Let people know what geckos make a great first pet here in Australia. So if you're new to reptiles and you have your heart set on a particular species you want to get into, don't let this video deter you. If they didn't make this list, it doesn't mean they're not good for a beginner. The main thing when it comes to keeping reptiles and learning about a new species is research. You got to speak to breeders, you've got to read books, read stuff online, care sheets, cross-reference your information all over the place. I still research the animals I've had for years. It's a non-stop process. You got to keep learning. It's all about replicating that wild environment and making them feel nice and at home, comfortable, safe, free from stress. When getting a reptile, you really need to consider why you want the reptile. Is it something you want to hang out with and handle, or something you just want to interact with or look at on display? You need to understand this before you get the animal so you can make an informed choice. So something like a gecko is not really something you should be handling. They don't really like that too much. But something like a blue-tongued skink or a bearded dragon can do great with handling. So keep that in mind and choose accordingly. Another limiting factor to other species might be where you live and the licensing regulations, if they're an advanced species or like an R1, beginner, basic species. But at the end of the day, the best beginner reptile for you is the one that gets you the most excited. The one that you're going to take the time to really properly care for and appreciate and enjoy. Keep what you love, an animal that's going to keep you engaged and passionate about the hobby for the long term, and that's going to result in an animal that's going to get the best life possible from you, and you're going to get so much more enjoyment out of it. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you found the video useful. Let me know in the comments below what you think is a great beginner reptile, or which reptile you think is your favourite. As always, subscribe for more Australian reptiles. It's not about how many reptiles you keep, but the quality of life you give them. I'll see you next time.